action. I can't get no call to action, but I try, and I try, and I try.
Hello and welcome to Call to Action, the go-to podcast for anyone trying to make sense of the world of marketing, advertising and beyond. In an industry that is a minefield of utter bollocks, we aim to capture our heroes and allies from the front line to have a chin-wag with. It's like Pokemon Go, with the single but vital exception that it's not a short-term bandwagon of shite. It's brought to you by Gasp, and I'm Giles Edwards, co-founder and MD. Today I've caught Sophie Cross. An OG freelancer with over 15 years marketing experience, Sophie is the hot off-the-press editor of Freelancer Magazine. After cutting her teeth in the travel and hospitality sector with the likes of London Eye and lastminute.com, Sophie's pandemic pivot produced Thoughtfully Marketing School, offering courses and resources to freelancers and small businesses. Out of hours, she's a Jay-Z superfan, total Indophile, and a double income large dog owner, or in her words, a dildo. Sophie says spending too long on the getting ready part can kill great ideas. Welcome to the show, Sophie.
Hey Giles, thank you so much for having me. What an intro, crikey.
7 quick fire questions then. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Reading or writing?
Writing. Gosh.
Sunrise or sunset?
Ooh, gosh. I'll have to say I'm going to say sunset. Now we can go out again.
Noughts or crosses?
Crosses.
Books or magazines?
Ooh, gosh. Curveball. Magazines.
All right, 2 more. Liam or Noel?
Oh, Noel, all the way.
And final one, Michael Bolton or Andrew Bolton?
Andrew, of course.
Is the wrong answer. Amazing. Thanks for joining us, Sophie. To kick things off, can you tell us what was your first ever job? Because our research suggests it was either in a cheese shop or at Pizza Hut. So cheese was very much involved. And then what was your first proper marketing job?
So yeah, first ever job was in a cheese shop. So it was in like a little cheese shop, deli and bakery, which I think I went in. There's so much before and after school that they just offered me a job one day. So yeah, that was a good and yeah, obsession with cheese has continued from there. And I still really want to own a cheese shop one day. It's going to be called Stinky's Cheese, Wine and Adventure Books.
And then how did you get into marketing then?
So, worked at Pizza Hut during uni, went to uni, studied business, and, I guess I was expected to go to uni. It was never really, I wanted to go, I was expected to go, and I suppose I was really interested in business, but it was also generic enough to delay me having to make any further decisions about my career, because I really didn't know what I wanted to do beyond probably working in business. Yeah, left uni, kind of had that thing where you can do whatever you want to do, went for some job interviews, and, I was even more horrendous at job interviews then than I would be now. So failed spectacularly going for, these graduate jobs in Mars and companies like that. Continued working at Pizza Hut, and yeah, had that other moment where I was like, I can be whatever I want to be. So I trained as a personal trainer and sports masseur, and moved to Brighton. So I was personal trainer in the day and Pizza Hut waitress at night. I was working in the Hilton Brighton, so I got a job in the Hilton Brighton in their gym. And just, in hindsight, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I probably could have started a personal training business, but I was like 22, 23 at the time, and just enjoying going out and spending what little money I had on going out in Brighton in the evenings. So just got really bored of, what was largely a job handing out towels in a gym. So I went to the HR department one day and I said, look, have you got any more jobs going? I'm a bit bored handing out towels. And I'd actually dropped marketing at university. So in my first year at uni, I'd, got a lower mark in like one marketing paper than, you know, I'd hoped. And I just put it down then to the fact that like, oh, you know, this is like the sexy career and, you know, you need to be really creative. And I was like rubbish at drawing. So I was like, well, this isn't for me, you know, I would have loved to do it, but, you know, obviously not cracked up for it. Went to HR and they said, oh, you know, and I actually told them this as well. I said, oh, you know, I've done a business degree, but I dropped marketing. And they said, oh, well, we've got the jobs we've got at the moment are sort of PA to the general manager or marketing exec. And I was like, oh, well, actually, you know, in hindsight, I'm probably quite good at marketing. I'd love to sort of give it a go. And yeah, they gave me the job. I kind of, you know, I really wanted the job. I really tried hard and spoke to the sort of current marketing director to get as much info as possible. And you know, one of the main incentives I think for them was that they started me off paying me the same as I was being paid in the gym. So there wasn't really, you know, it was win-win for them in some respects. But yeah, that was my first ever kind of marketing hospitality job, and I went on to sort of do my CIM while I was there, and you know, fortunately, kind of got noticed by the marketing director at Hilton, the sort of regional marketing director, and climbed my way up in that job fairly quickly because, you know, I was pretty proactive and I was doing my CIM and things like that. So yeah, that was the start of my marketing career.
Nice. I like the point you made about university and choosing something that was generic enough to delay decisions, because I think everybody feels pressure, don't they, at that stage, if that is a route they do go, to make the decision the right one. And of course, it's almost impossible to know what the right decision is until you either retrospectively decide it was, or you become much wiser and understand the kind of broad options that are available. So that seems like a really smart decision. Has that helped you, do you think, your kind of your specific business education, has that helped you in your marketing role? Because it's an area of expertise that I think would benefit, you know, all marketers.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to remember what you learned at uni now, isn't it? I suppose there's always that kind of debate as well, whether the 3 years would have been better spent just getting into business. But certainly the business degree and then kind of my time in the corporate world has set me in good stead for lots of things. But you know, I was also kind of desperate to get out of that world and work for myself for a long time. So it's nice to be doing that now as well.
Yeah, of course. And obviously you had the opportunity to do some CIM training as well. So you kind of honed in a bit more on the marketing role. And then how did you end up going freelance?
So, had a few jobs in hospitality marketing. My last one was I was resort marketing manager at Chessington Model Adventures. And then I actually left. I was happy there. And, you know, the team there were amazing. But I just sort of got itchy feet. I actually had a really long commute as well. And I did a really short stint at an agency in Covent Garden, really small agency run by someone I used to know, and just wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be, more because, I don't know, like they didn't really have any clients, and I didn't really know that before I took the job, to be honest. So it kind of got to the point where I thought, oh God, like, you know, I might as well go for it now. You know, I'd always kind of wanted to run my own business, and I'd had a bit of a light bulb moment. I remember on my commute one day to Chessington, you know, after I'd set up, I'd written business plans for, crikey, you know, like sausage and mash restaurants. Like I was just obsessed with setting up my own business, and then always kind of got to the point where I was like, yeah, maybe a sausage and mash restaurant isn't like, that's probably got quite a lot of startup costs. You know, living in London, looking at like restaurant spaces to rent. And then I had the idea like, oh, I could set up a marketing business, and, you know, the startup cost would be really low, and I actually know what I'm doing. So I'd had that idea before I kind of went to work for this little agency. And then when that just wasn't going to plan, I was like, well, you know, I've got nothing to lose now. So I went freelance about just over 8 years ago now. Yeah, and I really thought I'd kind of, you know, social media was really kind of hotting up at the time, and I thought, I would have done anything just to work for myself, really. And I thought I'd be running social media accounts, and luckily that wasn't what ended up happening. I did get, you know, taken on to do some quite nice marketing projects and rebranding projects, and sort of taken on by ex-employers, and that's how I started working for the London Eye. And then I got, you know, passed on to lastminute.com, and just kind of that freedom and flexibility was just, I just thought it was amazing. And I've got a dog, which was one of my main incentives for going freelance, to be honest. So yeah, haven't looked back really.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well done you, because it's quite a daunting thing for anyone to go solo in any guise in freelance capacity. It's obviously made an impression, because if we fast forward a few years, you've just launched Freelancer Magazine. So for our audience and anyone who might not be familiar with it, can you explain what it is and who it's for?
Yep. So it's a quarterly print magazine, print first magazine. There is a digital option as well. So it's a business and lifestyle magazine, and largely I'd say, we're targeting creative and B2B freelancers, but we've just issue 1 has just dropped, so it's early days, but yeah, gosh, it's just been an absolute whirlwind. Just need to start writing issue 2, do that second album, that sequel, which is feeling the pressure now, to be honest. Probably feeling the pressure more now than I was, when we launched issue 1. But yeah.
What gave you the idea to create it in the first place? Because launching a magazine, I mean, that might have been fairly common in going back a few decades, maybe in the 80s and 90s, where magazines were so kind of illustrious and sexy. But magazines, for various reasons, have become rarer and rarer in many ways. So what made you think you'd launch one?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that was the reason to do it, really. But the short answer is that the idea pretty much sort of popped into my head on New Year's Day this year. I had a bit of a light bulb moment and I suppose it does feel like the stars have aligned a little bit for me in terms of all the different things that I'm interested in. You kind of lay down all these dots, and one day they kind of join up and you think, oh my God, like this is where all these things were leading to. Where it actually came from was, to start the story last year really was, we moved back to London in February, and I was really gagging to kind of get back and do something a bit different, and we were living in Exmoor for 5 years. So it was lovely and the lifestyle was amazing, and, client work was going pretty well, but I did feel like I was plateauing and I wasn't really surrounded by the kind of inspiration and culture and entrepreneurialism that you get in London. So yeah, we were keen to kind of get back, and actually I was keen to start something. I was keen to do something a bit different, and I sort of thought that I would be launching some sort of hospitality networking event or something like that. I was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna make a name for myself as a hospitality marketer. And that was February, and then by April a lot of my client work had dried up. And I suppose there was I needed to do something. B, I had that thing where I was sort of still, I was gagging to do something new anyway, so I needed to channel that somewhere. And C, I suppose, I had a bit of I said this the other day, I had a bit of a Kevin from Home Alone moment where you kind of think, where he's in Home Alone and he goes, I made my family disappear. And then he's like, I made my family disappear. And I had that kind of moment where I was kind of sulking on these long dog walks about not having any clients, and actually that it could be quite a good time to market yourself, because all that was going into people's inboxes at one point was like a message from your CEO, and I was like, it's going to be a good time to market yourself and show people what you're really about, and set yourself up for a good year when we come out the other side. And I thought, well, I can either kind of have a bit of a sulk that clients have cut their marketing budgets, which is obviously totally understandable in the travel and hospitality industry, or I can get out there and do something, and I can start marketing myself, and actually, I can do it in the way that I want to, without having any client briefs or any kind of, needing to get sign off or needing to get client amends. So I just thought, well, so I started creating marketing courses online, and just to sort of learn something new and learn how to do something new. And it was a great way for me to kind of create content for myself and have something to put out there. And they started going quite well. And actually the magazine idea came from the fact that I was sort of sitting there thinking, right, okay, cool, these are going quite well. How can I sort of continue to raise my profile as, a go-to freelancing marketing expert? And how can I create content for people that is interesting, that, stands out a little bit, and, isn't just kind of like another blog or another newsletter? And that's when it came into my head. I was like, oh, like print, like no one's doing print. And, you know, everyone was kind of at home and everyone was kind of fatigued from being online so much. So yeah, that's when the idea came about. And then it kind of obviously turned into, you know, it's very soon, I mean, straight away, really, it came into the idea in itself as opposed to an idea for marketing the courses. It was like, okay, cool. Now I'm not doing the courses anymore. Now I'm doing a magazine. So
yeah, it's awesome, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I hope that if our people listening haven't got a copy, they'll go out and get one, even if it does take weeks to arrive. Listener warning. That was just mine, wasn't it? That was just my copy.
It was Andrew Bolton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I mean, yeah, I must admit we have had a couple of people now that have come back. You were the only one for ages, and I was like, oh my God, you know, we sent out 500-600 copies, and you were the only one. But we found it, didn't we? We found it, got returned. So I was like, oh, it wasn't just, you know, we didn't. I'm not distributing actually, which was a nice decision that I made for myself. I was tempted at some point, like, oh, should I distribute? But yeah. Sorry about
that. I'm only pulling your leg. How would you describe the experience of doing the magazine? Like, presumably it was long and complex and really hard, and certain things must have been easy. I mean, can you put it into words how it felt to cross that finish line?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I actually didn't see it until everyone else did. So I didn't get a print copy because, I mean, you know, I'm so all or nothing, and I make decisions like really quickly, and I was really keen to like keep the momentum. So I wanted to launch the Kickstarter really quickly. You know, I wanted, you know, there's so much kind of momentum and that sense of urgency that you get from a Kickstarter anyway. So I just really didn't want people to wait to get the magazine after the Kickstarter had finished. You know, I didn't, you know, in hindsight, maybe people waiting like 6 weeks instead of 4 weeks wouldn't have made so much difference. But in my head, I was like, I want people to get it in April. The Kickstarter finished on April 1st, I think. And I was like, right, I want people to get the magazine in April. But yeah, when it landed, and luckily, you know, I could have been the person that didn't get their magazine.
Yeah, imagine that.
It was, it started getting posted second class on the Tuesday night, and I sort of I didn't know because I wasn't distributing it exactly when it went out. And then, you know, I logged into Twitter on the Wednesday morning, and, you know, I had like hundreds of notifications. I was like, oh my God. And, I was actually staying with my family at the time, and I kind of ran out, and I was like, the magazine's arrived. And my stepmom was like, the magazine's arrived. And I was like, oh my God, has the magazine arrived? So then it was just kind of this nice moment where I was like, oh God, I can see it. Like, you know, and also you have to do this thing I found where after you've sent it to print, I couldn't read it anymore, right? Because you're going to see the typos. You're going to, you know, so it's like, I would say like in yoga, sometimes they say like, soft gaze, like have a soft gaze. So anytime I look at the magazine now, I have to have like a soft gaze over it and not look at it too carefully. But yeah, I was really like, that was it, you know, I worked with Angela Lyons, and so we'd made a magazine. Well, we'd made lots of magazines for a client before. We used to make one that went into lots of different hotel rooms, that went into venues along the South Bank. So when I had the idea to make a print mag, you know, it was only really because we'd worked together on magazines before that I was like, oh, I know we can make a magazine. And like, she just did such a fantastic job. And actually that process of working, you know, I'm quite bad at outsourcing things, and obviously you know, it makes it much easier when it's design, when it's something you have no skill at whatsoever. But actually, you know, the process was really, really easy of us working together. It was like, we have you know, we do have a bit of a meeting of minds, and you know, it was like the whole thing. She was like, I didn't really have any amends in terms of her design, so she was almost a bit like taken aback by it. Like, are you sure you like give me some more amends? I was like, no, I think it looks great. And yeah, I was excited for people to see the design of it as well. And yeah,
well, it looks awesome. It does look awesome. I need to, in the spirit of your amazing Isolated Talks video, which is titled Start Before You're Ready, did you then start before you were ready to do this? It sounds kind of like you might have done, but that's just how you tend to approach things, which, to be honest, is similar to how I do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, that that doing that talk became a bit of a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy for me in a good way, I suppose. And it's just kind of great if you start to be known. I've realized to like, talking about not being afraid to fail, then it kind of gives you a bit of a backup, right? Because you can just be like, yeah, well, I failed, but like I started before I was ready, so I'm still living the brand.
Yeah, exactly. I meant to.
Yeah, exactly. Just proving my point. Yeah, I mean, the video, actually I was in, it was just around the time last year where I just started making the courses. And, of course, like last year was a difficult year for everyone. And my confidence had gone a little bit. And it was just doing stuff like that really, really got me out of a bit of a hole and took me out of my comfort zone, but in a good way. And, I just wrote down how I was feeling making the video for the script, really, because I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like I'm starting before I'm ready. And yeah, I remember talking to my sister about it and being like, oh my God, oh God, this is, I'm going to mess this up or whatever. And she was like, well, this is perfect. Just starting before you're ready. Just write how you feel. And I was like, okay, yeah, great. That's perfect. So yeah, it's kind of, there's a point where you read these books about kind of launching early and launching minimum viable products and things like that. And, you're sitting there and you're agreeing. And then one day, sort of think I had this moment like reading The Lean Startup years ago. I was like, I'll stop reading books at some point and actually like get on and do something instead of just reading books, nodding, going, yeah, minimum viable products. Yeah, I suppose I started to get like a little bit of a reputation in my friends for like jumping in at the deep end. So I just thought I'd roll with it, really. And yeah, I've stitched myself up, really, because I do, I can't not say yes to things, because I know like if it's out of my comfort zone, I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll do it. And then it, it really does get to that point the week before or something, and I'm like, why do I have to be this person? Like, why can't I just be someone who's like happy in their comfort zone? Yeah, and then obviously afterwards you're like, oh, I'm glad I did it,
We had an isolated talk donated yesterday, in fact, as we record this. It's yet to be released, and one of the lines from the video are, I believe, quoting it incorrectly, no doubt, is if it's not uncomfortable and scary, then it won't make you grow. And I think there's obviously some truth to that. But your quote that we used in the start, that spending too long on the getting ready part can kill great ideas, is so true. It's exactly as per the line in the book that you read.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just, I think about it a lot, kind of obsessing about outcomes. I think that's just the worst thing, is that you obsess about how you think something is going to turn out. And it's just such a waste of time, because it will never, ever, turn out like that. And you won't know what will go wrong, won't be what, the things you obsessed about going wrong. So it's just, I think I just sort of see lots of people like, oh God, if, I just read one more book, then I'll be ready to start. And like thinking that it will be perfect. But, the magazine only came from years and years of me kind of failing at other things, or, whether you see it as failing or not, right? Like that's kind of down to you. So just go for it. Yeah.
More is lost from indecision than wrong decision. That's the bit of Tony Soprano there for everyone as well. I've always loved that quote. And how did the freelance community support you? Because from what I've seen, it's been immense.
Oh my word. Yeah, it was just like absolutely mind-blowing. It still continues to be mind-blowing. And, I did think, I was like, oh, I think people will get behind this. And, we've got quite a tight knit bunch on Twitter, and we support each other. And I thought, oh, I think, people get behind it. But, it was just unbelievable. Like people just took it on, like, we will get to this amount. Like it feels like it, it genuinely does feel like everybody's magazine. Like it feels, Ed Callow wrote into Lauren Laverne, and we got like a huge feature on BBC Radio 6 for it. And it was just, it continues to be incredible. The morning, or, the fantastic thing as well is I think that people just keep sharing it, like every time it arrives now, people put a photo of it on social media, and I'm like, oh my God, this is just so nice to see when it actually arrives, that it has arrived. And yeah, it's, I can't believe it. I really can't.
So you're committed to doing the 4 editions. 4 issues, and presumably there is some sort of life beyond that.
Yeah, I suppose I intend to continue it. Got quite a few people subscribing now through the website as well, and hopefully people that sign up for the first 4 issues will want to subscribe beyond that. So yeah, I suppose I haven't thought too much about it. I suppose I keep saying it, but my main focus at the moment is kind of making issue 2 as good as it can be, and then making issue 3 as good as it can be, because I think you can start to get carried away at this point and look a bit too far into the future, or think about growing it quicker than you need to, and actually all you really need to do is focus on making the product as good as it can be, and making it kind of consistent with the first issue, and not trying to be too clever, and getting, especially I'm conscious that it is largely me writing it, and of course we're featuring lots of other people and getting contributions, but you really need to kind of have some sort of feedback loop when it's just you doing things, and kind of really focus on making sure that it is what people want to see.
Yeah, of course. That's obviously the very much the right approach. So you mentioned issue 2 then. So what can people expect from issue 2, and how can they buy it?
So issue 2 is themed community. So, and yeah, you can buy it through the website freelancermagazine.co.uk. So if you just got issue 1 through the Kickstarter, or if you can still get issue 1 at the moment through the website as well, or you could subscribe starting from issue 1 or issue 2. But I would tell you more about issue 2, but I haven't started putting it together yet. We have got all the features, and we have got everyone that we're featuring and everything, but I haven't started writing it yet, so not fully. So yeah.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of listener questions for you then, Sophie. So, asking the general public for their opinion, be it on Brexit or boat names, is notoriously fraught with danger, but that's not stopped us asking. So, question 1 is from Rob. Rob asks, what advice would you give to new freelancers or those hoping to take the plunge on how to get your first clients? Do I have to use LinkedIn?
So, I think showing my age, it shows your age by saying showing your age, doesn't it? But I suppose when I was starting out, the obsession was with getting business cards. I got letterheads and compliment slips and everything, boxes of them, and getting your website. And I think you can kind of obsess too much about having a perfect website, when really what you need to be doing is telling everyone in your network that you're now freelancing and what you're doing, and actually LinkedIn, it might be a really good way to connect with people. And I think people think about LinkedIn as oh god, having to post content and get cold DM people, and but actually it can be a really fantastic way to kind of reconnect with people that you've worked with. So I would say the first thing you should do is make a list of everyone in your network. It could be friends and family, but certainly kind of people that you've worked with, and ex-employers, ex-colleagues. That would be my main advice. And my other piece of advice would be just join some freelance communities and get a bit of a support network going on, because I worked kind of in isolation for quite a long time before finding other freelancers on Twitter, and you really just need to see how other people are working, be inspired, get support, get help, and they're just the friendliest bunch of people. So get a support network and tell everyone that you're now freelancing would be my advice.
Nice. And as for LinkedIn, I mean, you've got a very popular course called LinkedIn for Humans, and we certainly need more humans on LinkedIn, because Christ alive, it can be quite a soulless place at times.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it was one of the things that appealed to me about it was that, again, no one was doing print, right? So do print, and if everyone on LinkedIn is kind of boring and the if everyone sort of was complaining about how bad it was, I was sort of thinking, oh great, well the benchmark's pretty low, you know, like it can be quite easy to stand out on there if you just have. So yeah, that would be my kind of counter argument to how bad LinkedIn is. But yeah, I think I see a lot of people having success with it, but you know, be yourself and don't try and. It's easy to kind of get dragged in, I guess, to thinking that you should use it the way everyone else is using it and be professional. And you know, I would say just be yourself.
Cool, good advice. Number 2 is from Caroline, and Caroline asks, what is your favourite part of being a freelancer? And as I'm asking, what is your least favourite part?
Oh, good question. Oh, Rusty's staring at me now. So yeah, my favourite part would maybe be getting a dog, but yeah, the freedom, the flexibility, and yeah, I really love kind of being able to work however I can work. I love kind of having no office politics. I love, you know, not having to go into lots and lots of meetings and things like that.
What's your least favourite part, do you think?
Okay, so I'd say my least favourite part is unmonitored access to the fridge.
That's your least favourite part? I was thinking that was one of the favourite parts. Yeah, right.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Depends on the day, I suppose. Depends what's in the fridge.
Yeah, right, yeah. Or what was in the fridge. Have you got a routine then to kind of get into that work mindset, like mode? Because I know quite understandably lots of freelancers who I'm friends with have probably struggled the least during lockdown. I've found it really hard, and I you know, I make no apologies for missing an office or an agency or studio type space, but there are quite a few little hints and tricks that people have advised I try to get into the, you know, to help force that mental split of being at home and being at work. But if you do anything to force that?
No, and I think maybe I could, you know, I'm thinking quite carefully about how I might be able to bring in more, because we just moved to a flat, which is the first time for a while that I haven't had a kind of dedicated office space. And yeah, I love working from home. I love that kind of, you know, being able to do whatever I want with the space that I can. So, you know, if I want music on, I can put it on. If I don't, you know, go and make a nice coffee when you know, silly things. I love that kind of having things exactly the way I want them. But I think the thing I've struggled most with is that I loved working from home because I had quite a busy social life, and to kind of not have that is, you know, especially the last few months. I mean, obviously things have just opened up again, which is amazing. But yeah, I kind of struggled with cabin fever a little bit, because normally I would kind of be going out in the evenings or going out at weekends, and where workload was picking up as well, I just struggled with kind of working the whole time. So yeah, I'm looking to, socialize more, but also bring in some better kind of routines and habits into my work.
Yeah, I certainly need to. I've heard quite a few. One of my favourites was actually from a distant cousin of mine who leaves the front door of his house and walks around the side of his house and comes in through the back door as his journey to work, which I love it so much because it's so fucking stupid. It's
yeah,
brilliant.
I think, I don't know. Yeah, I've heard lots of, you know, I'm some days I'll be like, yeah, I'm getting dressed and I'm putting my makeup on and I'm doing my hair, and then other days I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. And I think I sometimes fall into the trap of being like, yeah, it's flexible, I can do what I want, whereas actually I could just do with like setting some work times and yeah, I take the dog for a walk every morning, so that's kind of my commute, and that gets me into a good routine, I suppose, that I wouldn't be in if I didn't have him. So but yeah, beyond that, watch this space.
Yeah, that makes sense. Having that habit and also reason to leave. Yeah, no, that's good. Everyone needs a Rusty. So the final part of the interview then, Soph, is our 4 pertinent poses that we put to all of our guests, starting with, what advice would you give to your younger self?
So I think I'd just say kind of get out there more. I think the bizarre thing is that when I was kind of employed, I didn't really think too much about being part of marketing communities on Twitter or online, or getting out to sort of different types of events, or, there didn't really seem to be much point in kind of raising your profile as a marketer while I was employed, because, you're just sort of doing your job. And if you're in a job where the boundaries are kind of fairly set in place, it can be quite hard to kind of motivate yourself or see a reason why you should, be exposing yourself to all these different things. But I think, I wish I was started a bit earlier, and I suppose even started joining, these communities earlier as a freelancer, because it was probably only 3 to 4 years ago max. And, I've been freelancing just over 8 years now that I really started becoming part of freelance communities, or, meeting other freelancers on Twitter. So I would just say, just start doing that as early as you can, basically. Start getting yourself out there and start kind of, looking at lots of different options. Don't kind of settle and think that, you're in this job and the skills that you need in that job are all you're ever going to kind of use.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I don't think we've had that one before, actually, in truth, and it's certainly very valid. Number 2, if you could banish one thing from the industry, what would it be and why?
I was thinking about this. I think it would be marketers' kind of seeming inability to treat others the way they like to be treated as kind of consumers. So, from a, kind of like bad usability perspective, or, not using data correctly, or, pop-ups, and like, why would you ever, no one ever wants like loads of pop-ups, right? So why would you ever put loads of pop-ups on your website? And, I guess it also goes more into kind of like boring copy. Like one of my pet hates, especially like travel and hospitality, is really bad for it. So one of my biggest copywriting pet hate is like, why not? So like, why not join us for a glass of wine? Yeah. It's like, no one ever says that. You don't text your mate, do you? But you see it on like every board outside every pub, like, why not join us for a glass of wine?
Yeah.
And yeah, just us, that definitely goes into kind of making things interesting for people, creativity. We just brands just play it safe so often, and as consumers we never want to see safe. We don't notice safe. The content we're consuming isn't safe, but as soon as you kind of go in, you see marketers go into these meetings, they're like, yeah, I think we should just play it safe. It's like, yeah, so I just kind of banish that inability to kind of short-term tactics and, just discounting and then just having to constantly discount when, it's just damaging for brands as well as boring and tedious for consumers.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about that, but you're absolutely right with the travel signage, the why not join us. You almost need to start. Maybe get Dave Harland on the case. He can write a long list of reasons why they don't want to.
I know, we did try and give Dave Harland a brief the other day to, I don't know what it was like. We tried to give him something really boring just to kind of quash his creativity, and we asked him to do something for paint drying or skirting boards or something, and he still bloody came back with like something really good. We're really annoyed. More boring next time. We need boring briefs for Dave Harland.
If you're not familiar with his poem Dogs that he wrote when he was about, I think, 12 or 13, then I recommend you look it up. It's wonderful. It's his. I think he peaked, to be honest. I mean, he's still wonderful and great, but that's just such an awesome...
I don't think I've seen this. Oh my God.
We Dave was on Call to Action.
Oh wow, I've got new content to see.
Yeah, Dave was on Call to Action, and we actually got Ollie Mines, who narrated the poop video that we did for Copywriting he narrated Dave's poem, and we played it to him on the episode. So I'll send you a link, but it's wonderful. So number 3, are there any books that you would recommend?
I'm going to recommend 2 books, and then I have 2 pieces of advice about books which are actually contradictory. So one of them is The Artist's Way, which I'm rereading at the moment. So it's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which is like kind of spiritual and has lots of exercises that I didn't do the first time I read the book, and I'm not doing them this time. But yeah, it's actually, even though it has this kind of real spiritual element, it really has this kind of theme of just sort of telling you to get over yourself, and that it's not kind of virtuous to say yes to everything, or, to it's not virtuous to kind of like avoid doing creative work that you really want to do, you know, in order to do more sensible things, or to sort of think that other people deserve it more. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm just re-dipping into that book at the moment, which I really, really like. And yesterday I just finished The Choice Factory, which was actually recommended to me by old Dave Harland again. So yeah, that's by Richard Shotton. And that's 25 behavioral biases that influence what we buy. And yeah, just sort of talk what we were talking about before about, you know, thinking about why people actually make decisions. Yeah, it was just a fantastic book for that. And they talk a lot about kind of like being able to, you know, test your ideas in real kind of life situations without, you know, it's no use kind of asking people what they're actually going to do in focus groups and stuff like that. So I just thought that was a really, really clever book, and really kind of, makes you think about the psychology behind marketing, which I'm really interested in. And yeah, then my two contrary pieces of advice would be just be a bit wary, like I said before, about, you know, reading the Lean Startup, when I was like, oh God, you know, I actually have to stop reading business books at some point and actually kind of do the thing. So I think I do read quite a lot of books, but read them if you have something that you really are going to kind of apply them to, and make sure you're just not reading them to delay starting something. And the contradictory bit of advice of that is like something that really changed everything for me that last year was like writing down everything that resonated with me from books. So just keeping, I actually do it in Notion, so then it is searchable. But even just that process of writing down the bits that resonate with you, just I think it's really helpful to kind of make you know, obviously helps you remember, but also to kind of make you make decisions about, you know, what you want to do next and what you think about things, and you know, how you're going to resonate with people.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Yeah, funny enough, I know a few people that specifically use Notion for just that. It's really good advice. That wasn't as contradictory as I hoped. I was hoping it was going to be something completely ridiculous.
But it's like, don't read books, but also write down everything that you read in them.
When you do. Amazing. And then number 4, Sophie, we always dedicate every episode to someone, and we bestow that honour to our guest, who has to give the reason why. So would you kindly do the honours?
Yes, I'm dedicating this episode to Gareth Hancock, who is at That Content Shed on Twitter, who is, you know, he's an absolutely superb copywriter. He writes the way we all wish we could. I think he's, you know, just so funny, and, you know, always kind of oozing personality. And, you know, even if he writes 4 words, it's kind of just oozing hilarity and personality. But I'm nominating him because he's you know, I can't remember exactly how it happened, if I found him or I found Content Club UK first, which is a really nice community on Twitter. But, you know, he was really this kind of window for me into like the freelance communities. And, you know, he just kind of does it for so many people, where he's just like, hey, come on in, like pull up a pew, how you doing? Like, can I help you with anything? And I've seen loads and loads of other freelancers on Twitter as well say, you know, credit him with helping them get started in freelancing. I know he's got some amazing blogs on his website. I think he's got one that's 101 things he learned as being a freelance writer. And I see lots of people saying, oh God, I read this and it really helped me and it really got me into it. But, you know, I think he started setting the standard for like, this is how we treat each other. And then you want to kind of pay it forward and help other people. And you know, the more people that act like that, you know, it really is kind of like redefining the way we do business and the way that we treat our competitors and things like that. So yeah, I just want to give Gareth a shout, because I think, you know, without him, I wouldn't have got into freelance communities, and, you know, I wouldn't be doing Freelancer Magazine.
That's a very fine dedication then. So this episode is very proudly dedicated to Gareth Hancock, who you can find, as Sophie said, as at That Content Shed. Fantastic. So as a final call to action, everyone can head over to this listing and we'll have links to The Artist's Way, The Choice Factory, obviously to Freelancer Magazine, which I'd urge you all to get behind and back and buy. How else can people get more Sophie Cross?
So my website is thoughtfully.co.uk. So that's where you'll find the courses. There's a couple of free courses on there as well. That's where you'll find I do a weekly marketing mindset newsletter. So you can sign up for the newsletter there. And I'm at Fully Thought Out on Twitter.
Well, Sophie, thank you for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and I've massively enjoyed it. And thank you for giving us all of your tips, for giving us your contradictory advice, for giving us the shout out to Gareth. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. Yeah, it's been great chatting to you.
And finally, thank you to everyone listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do share and review the pod. Keep questions and guest requests coming in. To get in touch, it's easy to find Gasp online. You can check out CTA Pod on Instagram or email hello@calltoaction.co.
I can't get no call to action. I can't get no call to action, but I try, and I try, and I try, and I try.